You were born with it. Before language, before education, before rules were etched into your mind, you saw. Not with your eyes, with something deeper, something ancient, something that pulsed with knowing. You noticed things others didn't. You felt the energy in a room shift before anyone spoke. You knew when someone was lying even if they smiled. You had dreams that showed you things before they happened. You sensed that behind this world was something else. A layer, a code, a presence. That wasn't your imagination. That was your third eye. And you've been using it your whole life, even if no one ever taught you its name. Because the third eye isn't something you activate, it's something you remember. They call it the pineal gland, a tiny crystal-like structure deep in the center of the brain. But ancient cultures didn't speak about it as an organ. They called it the gate, the watcher, the inner sun, the divine eye that sees not through light, but through truth. In Egypt, it was the eye of Horus, not a myth, a symbol of perception beyond duality. In India, it was the Ajna chakra, the command center. In the East, they said, "Close your eyes to the world, and the inner eye will awaken." Even in Christianity, Jesus says, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." But they never explained what that meant. They didn't want to. Because once you see through the third eye, you stop seeing the world the way they told you to. You stop falling for the illusion. From the moment you entered this world, you were taught to trust only what could be seen, measured, proven, explained. But the third eye doesn't operate on logic. It moves through resonance, intuition, energy, symbol, pattern. You knew as a child, before the world trained it out of you, before they told you not to trust your instincts, not to ask certain questions, not to feel too much, to grow up and become numb like everyone else. But the third eye doesn't close, it waits. And that's why you're here now. Because something in you is waking up, not curiosity recognition, a remembering. You're not just seeking knowledge, you're being called. Called to reclaim a part of yourself that never went missing, just went quiet. Called to see not what the world shows you, but what lies behind it, beneath it, beyond it. You've always known. You just didn't have the words. But you felt it in your bones, in your breath, in the silence between moments. That there's more. That the surface is just a mask. That reality itself is not solid, it's symbolic. A dream within a dream. And there is an eye inside you that has never stopped watching. It sees through the veil. It sees behind the masks. It sees with the heart, the soul, the spirit. And now, it's beginning to open. Not to show you something new, but to remind you of something you already knew. The third eye is not a tool, it is a truth. And once you start seeing with it, you can never go back to blindness again. It's not a metaphor. It's not a spiritual gimmick or a mystical exaggeration. The third eye is real biologically, energetically, cosmically. Deep in the geometric center of your brain lies a small, pine cone-shaped gland called the pineal gland. It sits between the two hemispheres of the brain, exactly where ancient texts said the inner eye lived. It's not connected to the outside world like your physical eyes, but it receives light. It responds to frequency. It produces chemicals that shape perception and awareness, most notably DMT, the molecule that activates in near-death experiences, deep meditation, and visionary states. The ancients didn't have microscopes, but they knew. They saw the pineal gland as the seat of the soul, a living bridge between body and spirit, not just part of your brain, but a portal to other dimensions, to your higher self, to the source of consciousness. itself. You weren't meant to just observe life. You were meant to see through it. Because the third eye doesn't just see images, it sees truth. It reveals what's beneath form, energy, intent, resonance. It perceives the unspoken. It recognizes patterns. It's how you read people without words. It's how you know when something is off, even when everything looks normal. It's how you dream, how you intuit, how you access insight that seems to come from nowhere, but is actually coming from you, from the part of you that remembers. Science has tried to reduce the third eye to a gland that regulates melatonin, but what they don't want to tell you is that this gland has photoreceptors like your physical eyes. It responds to light, not just visible light, but subtle light, energetic information, cosmic downloads, inner vision. This is not woo. This is biology. This is the sacred science that was buried because it grants too much power to the individual. If you understood what your third eye could do, you would never need an external authority again. You'd navigate the world from within. You'd trust the knowing that lives behind your forehead. You'd receive messages from the dreamscape. You'd feel your choices before you made them. You'd understand reality, not as I matter, but as meaning. Because to see with the third eye is to see through illusion, and once illusion breaks, control begins to crack. That's why this knowledge was suppressed, because a world full of awakened minds is impossible to manipulate. But your third eye can't be destroyed, only ignored, only numbed, only drowned in distraction, fluoride, fear, and artificial light. But it's still there, waiting, quiet, unblinking. You've always had it, and now it's starting to turn inward, like a flower unfolding in reverse, revealing not petals, but portals. The third eye is not a gift. It's a design feature, and you were meant to use it. The third eye is not a modern concept. It didn't emerge from New Age culture, yoga studios, or self-help trends. It's ancient, so ancient that it predates written language, so fundamental that the oldest civilizations on Earth not only knew of it, they worshipped it. They called it by different names, encoded it in symbols, built temples to it, designed entire philosophies around it. Because they understood this was not just an eye, it was the origin of perception itself, the interface between the human and the divine. Look at ancient Egypt. The Eye of Horus, arguably the most iconic symbol of their civilization, is more than art. Its proportions, when broken down anatomically, match the exact structure of the human brain, the pineal gland, the thalamus, the corpus callosum. That's not symbolism. That's science preserved in stone. The Egyptians didn't just draw the Eye of Horus. They placed it everywhere on temples, sarcophagi, amulets. They used it to represent protection, awakening, spiritual sight. They knew it was the eye that sees the unseen, the eye that awakens at death and guides the soul through the afterlife. Not a myth, a map. Now look to India. In Vedic teachings, the Ajna chakra, the command center, is the sixth energy center, located between the brows, called the third eye, not because of poetic tradition, but because of experience. Yogis who went inward found it. Mystics who meditated for days in darkness saw it as a spinning vortex of light. It was how the rishis received cosmic wisdom, how they saw through Maya, illusion. They described it in Sanskrit texts thousands of years before neuroscience caught up. A seat of consciousness, a gateway to higher dimensions, not imagination, direct perception of what lies beyond matter. In Mesoamerica, depictions of deities often include a central forehead glyph, a radiating eye, a flame, a portal. The Mayans had temples aligned to celestial events designed to activate inner vision through ritual and vibration. The Toltecs taught that awakening this center was the path to becoming a seer, not just of the future, but of the truth beyond time. In Tibet, monks practiced tumo and dream yoga techniques to activate the inner eye and consciously navigate the dream state, death state, and astral dimensions. They drew mandalas that mimicked the structure of the pineal gland. They meditated in caves of complete darkness for 49 days, awakening light inside. Even in Christianity, it was there but hidden in plain sight. Renaissance paintings show saints with radiant circles over their foreheads. Cathedrals were built with rose windows in the place of the third eye. The single eye teachings of Jesus were not metaphor. They were mystery school knowledge encoded in parable. Everywhere you find the same pattern, the eye that sees within, the portal through which divinity speaks, the seat of true vision. So why don't we talk about it? Why did this universal wisdom mirrored across continents, cultures, and millennia suddenly become superstition? Why did it go from sacred to silly? Because something happened. The world shifted, and those who sought to rule from without knew they had to suppress what awakens from within. So they took the symbols and repurposed them. The Eye of Horus became an Illuminati meme. The chakra system was reduced to colored graphics. Ancient temples were rebranded as mythology. Mystics were labeled insane, and spiritual anatomy was buried under literalism and dogma. But the eye never closed. It only became quiet, like a forgotten temple in the jungle, overgrown, but still standing. And now you're finding it again, not through study, through resonance. Because you've been here before. You've walked those temples, you've seen those symbols, and they're not just history, they're memory. And memory is waking up. If the third eye connects you to truth, if it grants you access to the unseen, if it allows you to see beyond illusion, beyond authority, beyond fear, then of course they shut it down. Not because it was dangerous to you, because it was dangerous to them. Because a population whose third eyes are open cannot be manipulated, cannot be ruled by fear, cannot be controlled through false images and hollow promises. They don't worship systems. They remember they are creators of reality. So what do you do with a world full of souls who are born with access to this power? You convince them it doesn't exist. You replace inner knowing with outer obedience. You replace spiritual awakening with religious dogma. You replace silence and stillness with constant noise. You replace the portal to the infinite with a screen. The suppression of the third eye didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, strategically, systematically. First came the religions. They told you God was outside of you, that heaven was a place you had to earn, that salvation came through obedience, not inner light. They turned mysticism into ritual, insight into doctrine, and the sacred into shame. The mystics who spoke of the inner eye were silenced. The Gnostics burned. The seers exiled. The wise women branded witches. The yogis ignored. The prophets institutionalized. Then came the empires. They built education systems not to awaken, but to program. They taught you facts, but not truth, information, but not intuition. They told you what to think, never how to feel. They flooded your senses with distraction. They dimmed the light within you with fluorescent bulbs, digital screens, toxic foods, and chemicals designed to calcify your pineal gland. Yes, physically. Fluoride, found in tap water and toothpaste, binds to calcium deposits in the pineal gland. It hardens what should be fluid. It deadens what should be electric. And it does so slowly, silently, without resistance. Why? Because an activated pineal gland doesn't just shift how you see, it shifts who you are. You begin to dream vividly. You see patterns where others see noise. You hear what isn't said. You feel what others suppress. You remember who you were before the forgetting. And when that happens, you become dangerous. Not violent, not chaotic, but unpredictable, unprogrammable, unshakably free. That's what they fear most. So they built a world that keeps your third eye closed by default. A world of noise, speed, fear, distraction, division. A world that rewards blindness and punishes clarity. That exalts conformity and ridicules inner knowing. That treats mystics like fools and fools like leaders. But the third eye isn't theirs to suppress forever. It's part of your divine design. It will never disappear. It waits patiently. And when you quiet the noise, when you withdraw your energy from their illusions, when you begin to look within instead of out, it returns, not with fire, but with light, with remembrance. And that moment, the moment you begin to see again, that is what breaks the spell. The third eye isn't opened with force. It's not a switch you flip or a technique you master. It's not a party trick. It's not something you unlock once and forget. It's a frequency, a state, a way of seeing and being. You don't open it, you tune into it. The truth is, your third eye is always active. It's just buried under layers of noise, fear, chemicals, distraction, and programming. It doesn't need to be activated. It needs to be uncovered. And when that begins to happen, everything changes. The world doesn't look different. You do. Your perception sharpens. You begin to feel what others miss. You hear the truth behind the words. You see the energy behind the form. You recognize patterns, synchronicities, invisible threads connecting everything. It starts subtly. You'll get chills when someone speaks truth. You'll sense someone's energy before they speak. You'll dream more vividly. You'll hear whispers in the silence, not from outside, but from within. Colors become more vibrant. The sky seems more alive. Time bends, slows down in moments of presence. You start to remember things you never learned. You feel yourself becoming more you than ever before. Not everyone around you will understand, because awakening the third eye doesn't make you superior. It makes you sensitive to truth, to distortion, to beauty, to pain, to the falseness of the world. And at first, that can feel overwhelming. But you're not here to escape it. You're here to see through it. To be the presence that cuts through illusion just by existing. So how do you awaken the third eye? You stop running, you get still, you listen. Silence is your greatest teacher. Spend time in darkness not as punishment, but as purification. In darkness, the pineal begins to pulse again. That's why mystics meditate in caves, why prophets retreated to the wilderness, why dreamers close their eyes to see more clearly. You breathe, deep, slow, intentional, because your breath is the bridge between your body and your awareness. You use sound, binaural tones, Tibetan bowls, frequencies that remind your inner eye how to vibrate again. You fast from distraction, from empty entertainment, from overstimulation, from scrolling and numbing and overstuffing the senses, because your third eye is subtle. It speaks in stillness, and when the noise goes down, the inner vision rises. Crystals can help not as magic stones, but as amplifiers of intention. Amethyst, clear quartz, lapis lazuli, long associated with clarity and the third eye. But remember, the tool isn't the power. You are. Fluoride-free water, pineal detox herbs, time in sunlight, time under the stars. All of it supports the remembering, not as a formula, as a return. And when it begins, when the inner eye starts to awaken, your entire life begins to realign. You no longer chase what you once did. You feel dissonance in places you once belonged. You crave truth more than comfort. You become allergic to superficiality, and you begin to know without needing proof. That knowing is sacred. It's ancient. It's yours. And the more you trust it, the stronger it gets. This isn't about escaping the body. It's about uniting with the fullness of what it means to be alive. You don't just look at life. You see it. You don't just hear words. You feel what's unspoken. You don't just believe. You remember. And once you do, the world can never fool you again. You were never meant to awaken the third eye and go back to sleep. Because once you see, truly see, the illusion begins to unravel. But this isn't just about vision. It's about integration, embodiment. The third eye was never meant to be a light switch you flip on during meditation, only to turn off when you return to the world. It was meant to become the way you live, the way you breathe, the way you walk through this reality with a quiet fire in your heart, aware, aligned, and unshaken. They told you enlightenment was about escaping, floating away, becoming pure light, untouched by the world. But that's not the truth. The awakened eye is not an exit. It's an entry point into a life of presence, of precision, of deep soul clarity. You don't awaken the third eye to transcend this world. You awaken it to finally be in it fully. To see the beauty hidden beneath the chaos. To decode the symbols that life constantly sends. To navigate your path not by logic, but by truth, resonance. It's not dramatic. It's not always mystical. It doesn't always feel like a cosmic download. Sometimes, it's just the way you pause before speaking, the way you hear between the words, the way you hold space in silence, the way you walk away from what no longer feels right, not in fear, but in clarity. Living with an open third eye means you trust yourself. You trust the vision that doesn't come from sight. You trust the whisper, the pull, the quiet no. It means you stop outsourcing your truth. You stop waiting for permission. You stop needing validation to feel what you feel. Because you know, and knowing is freedom. The world isn't afraid of mystics in caves. It's afraid of people who remember while paying bills, raising children, walking city streets. It's afraid of those who've activated their inner vision and stayed in the world anyway. Not to fight, not to preach, but to live differently. To hold that frequency, to be that presence, to walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. That is the power of the third eye. Not what you see, but what you become once you see. And here's the truth they never told you. The eye was never meant to open and be forgotten. It was meant to become your lens, the way your soul expresses itself in form. The awakened third eye isn't a moment. It's a way of life, a steady hum of knowing beneath everything, a deep alignment with reality as it truly is, not how they told you it should be. And once you begin living that way, there's no going back. You are the presence that remembers in a world that forgets. You are the clarity that cuts through noise. You are the light behind the eyes, watching, witnessing, awakening others just by being. The eye doesn't just see. It shines. And now, so do you.